Good morning. So anyway, today is September 10th, 2025, right? And so anyway, they never recorded a legal judgment against me in the court docket, but they made me believe that there was one recorded, right? So anyway, I don't know. They know I'm a pro se, and you can't really defend yourself. It wouldn't have mattered if I had an attorney or not. There was a script to follow, right? And it was steal the target me in place on my land that I'm at, steal the pension, steal child support, you name it, steal it, steal a trust fund. They'll even record on the court docket. Just the whole thing. So first of all, there is no legally recorded judgment, right? They tell me there's a judgment, case goes through the Supreme Court, right? And you have to have a judgment entered that has to be verified by the Supreme Court. And even if it's on an order, you needed to record it, right? And they didn't want to record it because they didn't want any proof a legal divorce ever took place. Because this dumbass got together with family and everybody, and they were going to take me down. I don't know what the hell I did, but anyway, apparently it was worthy. I mean, there was other people doing all kinds of crusty crap in that family, but, whatever. I don't know. Now I look back and I think, did my intelligence and, intimidate them? And I'm a woman. What the hell was it? I didn't take my assigned role as the cognitively delayed child that they always dreamed of having. Because, well, first of all, if I was cognitively delayed, why would you beat the crap out of me and leave me orphaned at home to fend for myself at 4 years old? By myself at 4. Can you imagine? Yeah, no, I've survived a lot, right? So anyway, because God wants me to. Yeah, he wants me to kick ass is what he wants. So, okay, so then now we're going to go down here. We go through, this is a 9-year divorce case because they got to get me up to the age of 65, of which I am. Because this is a whole estate transfer and robbery, right? This is, it's grand larceny, you name it, right? This is grand larceny. Taking money out of my bank account without a legally recorded judgment against me. This is grand larceny, right? Because they're telling Alaska USA Federal Credit Union, we got a levy. We got a garnishment on here. We can do this. No, you can't. Because what do you have to have? A legally recorded judgment. Otherwise, it's grand larceny. There's a lot of grand larceny. So anyway, we're going to go down here. And you're talking to somebody that's been tortured for 9 years, right? In a fake-ass divorce case with a con man using his non-legal name. We've already proven that over and over. Okay, so this is a 9-year divorce case, right? Okay, so we're just going to go. He didn't file any tax returns. All these, they listed, some nice clerk listed all the documents right here. They even got a civil deficiency memo to turn them in, and they still didn't do it because they weren't doing a real divorce. They weren't doing it. So we're going to go right down to judgment, right? So the case goes through the Supreme Court, and it is on 10/2/2017 because the decree was issued on 8/31/2017. Decree of divorce granted, okay? And then Kevin files Justin Eschbacher motions for judgment. And then appeal filed in the Supreme Court. So we know that the case went through the Supreme Court, But this is an estate robbery. They're going to ignore all that. And they know I'm a pro se. They know that I couldn't get any attorney in Alaska to help me because there was a script already written for this case. This was just nothing but an acting job. That's all it was. This was a full, entire estate robbery. So the case goes through the Supreme Court, right? God's going to download me. And then his attorney's even motioning. You got to think, the Supreme Court, he's filing the Supreme Court, there's no legally judgment entered. And they're proving it. So after he files for the Supreme Court, right, he's doing it on 10/2, appeal filed in the Supreme Court. They know no judgment's been entered against me. What does attorney do? He motioned for judgment right there. Motion for judgment and attorney fees. Yeah, that's Justin Eschbacher, right? There he is, right there. There's a bar number, whole thing. Okay, so they do that. Then they go in and they change his name to the same name that he filed suit in. A crafty son of a bitches, I'll tell you that. And then they do an amended divorce decree to the same name that he filed suit in, right? And then they go on to steal pension money from me, right? Yeah, grand larceny all over the place, you know? Right here at Alaska, USA. They shut down my 20-year bank account. So I remember this. I remember this, and I know I've got it printed out on my tax returns. It's got attached it to the 2022 tax returns. Anyway, yeah, there it is, right? I remember that. I was so pissed. 20-year bank account shut down due to grand larceny. So, okay, we're going to go down here. The case comes back from the Supreme Court. Judge Heath will not record a judgment against me. He refuses to. Case gets reopened, right? They're closing and opening this case like you won't believe, right? They just do. Okay. And you go through this whole entire docket, and you'll never see the words Kim LG owes a judgment. And that's why we're here today. Case comes back from the Supreme Court. It gets routed to the judge, file routed to judge. Notice of return of jurisdiction. I know this case by heart. Give me my trust fund back. You know, you're there passing it from attorney to attorney. You know what you should do. You should give me my trust fund back. That's what you should do. You know? So anyway, so order setting hearing on remand, the whole thing. Why are we in court today in 2025? Grand larceny. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. Okay, so we're going to go down here. Then the attorneys, Judge Heath won't put a judgment against me. They don't really want a judgment in this case. Attorney information, attorney caller Jeremy, dismissed, withdrawn for Alfonsi. And they have to motion to do it. Motion to withdraw for good cause. Oh, Jeremy motions up here because I was thinking they don't do that. Yeah, they motion to withdraw. So we're going to go up here and watch them withdraw. So the day after, Judge Heath was supposed to put a judgment against me on 1/1/2019. And then they know he's not going to. So they start withdrawing from the case. Both attorneys, mine and his. This was the end of our relationship, me and Ken Goldman. No more. I'm pro se here on out. Wouldn't have mattered who I got. There was a script to follow of grand larceny. That's it. Okay. So now we're going to go down here. Right there. Yeah. Notice of return of jurisdiction, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court. Okay. That should have been it. That should have been it. Right. So now you're looking at pure ass torture, sadistic behavior. They're sadists. They're absolute sadists. They're doing this crap to a mother with a special needs child because some old rich billionaire, you know, has I guess mommy and daddy issues, right? They couldn't never let me lead my life. They always had to prove they were better than me. You're better than me, bro. My God, who gives a crap? Who gives a crap? I don't. I never thought about that person ever. I didn't. You got some mommy and daddy issues still. You need to go to more therapy. I guess you went through a lot of therapy. You need to continue on, man. Continue on till you heal yourself. Unhealed people do this crap. You're not going to get any spiritual gifts. They're not going to be God-given. You may bring up some demon, and that son of a bitch will like me. That demon likes me. I don't care what demon you conjure. It's going to like the earth angel. It's just part of the gift. Yeah, they like that angelic energy, all them demons. They love it. So anyway, we're going to go down here. They falsify this, the hell out of this. How many times do you guys do this? So they stole child support from us. So now they're going to take me back to court, knowing I'm a pro se, and I don't know. They can't take me back to court because the case already went through the Supreme Court. So what you're seeing basically is just a whole bunch of BS, right? Just years of torture. That's all it is. Yeah, they're processing 401s clear into, this is when I find out. I go to Vital Records. They tell me your husband didn't file suit in his legal name. The courthouse goes, oh, we'll hurry up and we'll send one in with his non-legal name and we'll falsify her and give her a certificate of divorce. And it looks like crap. I'm not even going to show it because it's an embarrassment because it's not even a real ass document. And it's in the name Kevin Alfonsi, right? It's not in his legal name. And the whole point was to hide that name, to steal that trust fund, the whole thing. Now, Kevin's got a problem because they still have my trust fund. But what's the problem? It's still, they're just using my name falsely and my identity falsely. They got to gain control of that trust fund that they stole. So they got to go back to court, right? They got to say, you got a judgment. They know. I'm not going to know. It went through the Supreme Court. God says that's okay because we're leading you to a trust fund. So we're going to let them lie. It's all in the plan, Kim. It's all in the plan. These dumb mofos are going to lead you right to that trust fund. And that's what I want you to be led to. Okay? So that's what happens. So anyway, they go and they reopen the case. He's like, you know, because they're so power-filled. Request for order to cease and desist defamation of my character. You're a lying sack of crap. You're filing suit in your non-legal name in a court of law, and you feel your character got defamed? Yeah, while you're out there telling people, I have herpes, I sleep around, I'm a bench with a mental illness. So you can get a full power of attorney over my stolen trust fund. And I've got a mental illness. I'm defaming your character, you son of a bitch. Yeah. Okay, so now, none of this should be going on. Went through the Supreme Court. None of it should be going on. None of it. Yeah. Right there. They order me. Kevin's like, she's crazy. She's crazy. Because they've got to get they got to get someone in the medical field to falsify documents to say that I'm BS crazy so they can get full control of that trust fund, so he can get power of attorney, so they can get guardianship and conservatorship over me. Yeah, you wish you even had a tenth of my IQ. I mean, I'm doing all this without an education. I had no law school. Yeah, I am pro se, but I'm pro se enough to know that you are committing a crime in court and you're committing grand larceny. And if I'm not, where's all those defamation suits, sweetheart? And sirs, where are they? They ain't filing them. So anyway, then you got to imagine this guy's hiding. He's a California resident the whole time, right? So the whole time he's bringing me into court for not doing visitation, knowing damn well, and everybody in this courtroom knows he's hiding his ass in California. 5420 Dixon West, Dixon, California. They know it. You know, this is just torment and harassment. So if I fly off my F flag every once in a while, I have every single right to do it. These custody investigators couldn't figure out where he lived. There's a real serious problem. If they couldn't detect he was living in California, when at this time, his LLC paperwork says he's living in California and is a resident, there is something seriously wrong in the system. These are investigators, after all. And that was in 2019 when he was a resident of California, for sure. Okay, so now we're going to go down. They start bringing me into court. They're like, we gotta get that second probate action against her. They're going to go back now. They ordered me to have a psych evaluation, and it comes back and says, I have a grade 7 anxiety disorder due to long life abuse. So what do? And no, my family didn't know I had spiritual gifts. They do now. Yeah, they do now. They're scary ass. Yeah, because there's things outside of me that work for me. That's God, right? And angels. And the angels can be, they can be like gang. So anyway, there we go. They're taking me back to court. And what? The case already went through the Supreme Court. So what do we say? Date of fraud. Date of fraud right there. They're opening the case to enforce orders back to 2017. Yeah, the case that went through the Supreme Court. This is just from this date forward, Grand larceny and fraud. That's all it is. Grand larceny and fraud. That's it. That's what you're seeing right there. Okay. They open the case. They say they're opening it to enforce orders. That's what it says, to enforce prior orders, right? And they're going back to this 2017 finding of fact and conclusion of law. That's what they're going to open it for. They say they're reopening it. It's already gone through the Supreme Court. No judgment entered against me. None afterwards. Went through a remand hearing, but they're going to reopen the case to go through the Supreme Court, right? Okay. Yeah, this is all fraud. So anyway, they know it too. They know that there's nothing but fraud committed in this case. They know it. Day one, he didn't file suit in his legal name, right? So then they give me judgment, right? And the whole time I'm taking care of my special needs son and his dad's, maintaining residence in California, maintaining residence in Alaska, stolen my identity, taking it to California too. I have no idea. That's not how you recorded judgment. Who's it to? How much is it for? We don't know, right? That figure can be changed at any time, right? So there's nothing ever on the court docket saying Kim LG owes a judgment, ever. This is not a legally recorded judgment under Civil Rule 58, 54B, 52, 58.2. Nothing, right? Okay, so there we go. Grand larceny. Is that grand larceny? Yeah, that's grand larceny. Yeah, okay, so now we know you can't serve writs or anything without a legally recorded judgment. Kim LG does not have a judgment against her. There was a judgment sent to make Kim LG believe that she had a judgment. They couldn't enter a judgment because the case already went through the Supreme Court. But they had to convince Kim LG, me, there was a legally recorded judgment, and they did. And they're going to harass the hell out of me for years with something that's never been recorded against me, right? The reason Permanent Fund Dividend would never acknowledge the writ sent to them, and they would never, ever garnish my PFD. Durham School Bus Services said we were never really sent a writ to garnish your wages. Somebody handed me papers at work to make me believe I was served a writ, right? Because they couldn't do it. There wasn't any legally recorded judgment. So I do fill out the exemption paperwork that's handed to me at work, right? And I turn it in. Oh, you creeps. This happens all the time. Okay. So anyway, we're going to go down here. If I stop and talk, it stops. So that you're just looking at pure harassment. They need to turn my trust fund over. Yeah, they do. So right there, you know, judgment. We're going to go past it. They even amend it. They say they made a clerical error. You don't do it twice. Amended, still don't record it legally. What don't they want? They know the case went through the Supreme Court. Yeah, they can't put a judgment against me. The only person that doesn't know it is me. I don't know it till I get downloaded in court. God's like, yeah, you don't have it. Go look for judgment against Kim LG on the court docket. Go look for it. Go look for it. You're not going to find it because you don't have a judgment. Case went through the Supreme Court. They couldn't. There is no valid certificate of distribution on those emailed judgments that came right from the courthouse to you. Emailed. Did you ever get one by certified restricted mail, registered process server? Did you ever get a judgment? No, I didn't. There you go. Okay. So that's what happened. So then they decide that they're going to start serving writs. What do you got to have to serve a writ? Well, you got to have a legally recorded judgment, right? And she's all getting all sassy because she's power-filled. She knows they're committing grand larceny against me. She knows it. She's helping steal from me. Not only that, they're going to kidnap my ass from the house. So, you know, motion and order for judgment debtor to appear. She's all cocky. So cocky. I want her in front of me. Yeah. There they are. They're doing writs of execution, and there's no legally recorded judgment against me, right? I don't even know these are going on, though. I have no idea these are going on. And then Samantha Fleming, who left the case, comes back, shakes hand with Amanda Lancaster, and they say, let's do a writ together, baby. Okay? And they do. They do. This is a grand larceny. There's no legally recorded judgment. What are you doing to me? You are doing fraud, and you know it. So there was 726, they started doing all the writs. Right there. And PFD won't do it, because what is PFD? Permanent fund dividend has to verify a legally recorded judgments on the court docket. And I don't know. I keep bringing it up in court. I'm like, PFD's not garnished. There's something wrong. PFD, Permanent Fund Division, refuses to garnish me. Why? Because they know. They steal it. What? It's grand larceny. And they know what? There is no judgment recorded against me on the court docket. There is no recording that says Kim Elgie owes a judgment recorded on the court docket. They know that, right? So they send them a writ, and what does PFD not do? They will not do it. They will never garnish my PFD, ever. Yeah. So didn't come back from them saying it was okay to do. They were not going to do it, right? But they do close down this bank account of mine that I've had for 20 years. They close it down. Yeah, 1200994. I think I got this, my 2022 taxes. Anyway, yeah, they close it down. So that's grand larceny, period. End of story, right? Okay, and the whole time, why'd they do this why was I drugged back to court after it went through the Supreme Court? Because there's a trust fund to steal. They need to hand it over. There's going to be all kinds of crap that happens. And it's of a spiritual nature. That's what's going to happen. And it's him. You're screwing with the divine is what you're screwing with. How come this is happening to us? Because you're screwing with the divine. How would you, if you work for a big corporation, just think of it like that. You work for a big corporation, a big company, and somebody's harassing your employee, and you really like this employee, what are you going to do? You're going to go to war for that employee. So anyway, I'm his employee. I'm his dedicated servant. So anyway, yeah, you're not going to go through this entire court docket. You're not going to see, any judgment recorded against Kim Elgie, just like PFD. Now, when I get to Durham says they were never served a writ to garnish my wages. And a lot of people were lied to about me, told I had a venereal disease and I was a cheater, because they had to defame my character for that second probate action. They had to do it, So they just defamed the hell out of me. Yeah, I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight your ass. I've been fighting land fraud, bank fraud, everything, because somebody decided that they wanted to watch me struggle. They liked to watch me struggle. Even when I was a child, I was left at home with money on the table at 4. They wanted a mentally ill child. No, I was extremely intelligent. They didn't like it. So anyway, how are you serving successful writs without a recorded judgment on the court docket? How are you doing this? Right? The only one that verifies it, because they don't want they don't want the grand larceny charge. The only one is PFD. They're like, nah, we're not doing it. Now, I get handed these writ papers at work. Was Durham really served? No. And what happened? I went into work and they told me they said when we had the day off, and I believe it was on the 18th, I'm writing the Teamsters Union and I'm telling them I'm pissed because somebody served. I go to work. We're standing in line for turkey vouchers. Somebody hands me, actually the boss says, here's papers. And I guess somebody I go out to dispatch and they say, you were served papers when we all had the day off. Federal marshals pulled up here. They served these papers. Well, it turns out it was all a lie. And I quit because I'm getting gang stalked at work from court officials. In fact, it was really weird because there was like a past court clerk on a bus, and she would talk to me, and she was really good friends with Judge Heath. And I was just like, you know, and I got the creeps too, because I went, this lady that's on the bus, she's driving the bus, knows Judge Heath, and she's a past court clerk. And it was in that same time frame that I was getting gang stalked at work. This is gang stalking. If you're serving, you're having somebody hand me papers to tell me that I was served a writ to garnish my wages, and there's Durham Today saying, no, we never did get it. They were paid to tell me. Somebody was paid to tell me. Not exactly Durham, employee. Somebody was paid to hand me papers to lead me to believe that I had been served a writ for garnishment at work when I wasn't. That's pretty damn, that's gang stalking my ass right at my job. And what? For a judgment that was never recorded on the court docket against me! You son of a bitches! So what you're seeing is grand larceny at its finest, using the Alaska court system. You give me my trust fund back! They stole the trust fund I've never seen, and then they go and record it in the court docket. So they gave me a claim of exemption issued, because they know there's no legally recorded judgment on the court docket, right? They know it. And this was all an acting job. That, grand larceny, right there. You have no legally recorded judgment. You shouldn't be garnishing anything. She's changing law firms. That's why she does this all the time. Superseding entry of appearance. Yeah, no, you're changing law firms, and you're not really telling that to the court because you guys are all billing a trust fund, doing more grand larceny. Stole my pension, planned on stealing me, planned on stealing my house, everything. So you're just looking at fraud. There's no legally recorded judgment on the court docket saying Kim Elgie. I submit the tax returns, and the judge hurries up and closes the case. I said Kevin Alfonsi, it's really Kevin Alfonsi Elgie, never submitted the tax returns, right? From 2015, he was helped in this case to embezzle 3 businesses, steal the whole entire pension, all the assets in this business. We were to get more child support, right? He's making $14,000 a month, and he is screaming he has to give me $1,000 a month. Screaming, right? And I was a business partner in those businesses too. And those son of a bitches, because it's a small world here in Alaska, were hiding those tax returns from me. They would not let me see them. I even went in when I finally did. I went in there and they said, ooh, it does not. They said, are you on the business? Can you see them? They didn't even, the preparer, nobody wanted to let me see them. Nobody did, right? So, grand larceny. There's no legally recorded judgment. And this is a trust writ of garnishment anyway. And they actually recorded on the court docket, right? But actually what's here is that guardian conservator is making a payment and is receiving a payment. Do you see that on the others? Is there a law firm noted by the others up there? No, because they're acting as my payee. They're paying a check towards a judgment that doesn't exist, and they're receiving the payment, right? They're receiving it too. So let's go up there and look in 2023 at those others. Are they recorded that same way? No, they're not. No, they don't have a law firm beside them. Because that's what you're seeing down there. So I filed the tax returns that were never filed, that were supposed to be filed in 2015 on 10/21 from a civil deficiency memo set. Notice to the court filing the 2014 tax returns of Kevin Alfonsi asked for on 10/21/2015 by the court in a civil deficiency notice sent on 10/21/2015, because they never filed those required documents to open a divorce complaint, and no divorce papers were ever served to me, because this was a case of pure torture. To steal this, to steal my whole identity, transfer all assets over, prevent me from selling my property, targeting me and my child in location, right? That was all this was about. Okay, so then you betcha, sweep, right there. I'm filing notice of fraud upon the court. Did they ever address that? No, because they know there's fraud. There's grand larceny going on here. Wage garnishment, disbursement, deterring in law. You never served. What wages? There's no legally recorded judgment, right? So yeah, no, so that's just grand larceny right there. And then she starts serving writs again with what? Without what? Without a legally recorded judgment on the court docket. Then they go on to start stealing the pension part that I was getting. They're going to steal it. More grand larceny, right? And then I said, objection to all orders being addressed in a closed court case. Because they say at the top of the docket, the case is closed. But do they close it within the docket? No, you're not going to see that. Because this is just open for writ abuse and grand larceny abuse. And then I say, notice of improper service to all past and current court writs. Well, there shouldn't even be any, honey, because you don't have a legal judgment recorded against you. And they couldn't do it because the case went through the Supreme Court. And their claim of exemption lodged. Yeah. So you're looking at just pure grand larceny. That's it. You have to have a legally recorded judgment on a court docket to serve a writ. They don't. And they knew they didn't. Because this wasn't a real case. This was an estate robbery. And then I tell them, Judge, the case went through the Supreme Court. Judge Heath, it had final judgment in the Supreme Court. Judge Heath also wouldn't put a judgment against me. There is no judgment against me because I get downloaded in court. I go into court on this hearing on, there was a 6/5/2025 hearing, and I go into court and God downloads me and says, yeah, there's no legally recorded judgment against you reflected on the court docket. There needs to be, and that's what he said. And ask the judge, how come they've never recorded a legal judgment against you if you owe a judgment? And then he said, yeah, the certificates of distribution on the email judges, there is none. You can't read the crap they have in the corner, and it was intentional. And then he said, the case has already gone through the Supreme Court, and they had to have judgment verified. And the only judgment they could verify when it was gone to the Supreme Court was there was no judgment entered. That's the only thing they could verify. That was it. And it came back like that. And they didn't want that anyway. Now it's going to do the same thing. This happens when you catch them. Okay, and then this is when I get a hold of the police because I'm figuring out this is an entire estate robbery. I get a hold of Wasilla Police Department and I say, hey, I just found out that plaintiff, he filed suit in his non-legal name outside of his California jurisdiction. And he's been hiding that, and he stole my identity. But I don't think I tell him that at the time. I tell it in the second letter. I tell him, and he stole my identity. This is an identity fraud case. They're doing a whole estate robbery. So on 3/19/2025, Amanda Lancaster writes me the day before and says, we're taking your home, we're taking your vehicles, we're taking everything for a judgment that was never recorded in the court docket. Okay, accounting deficiency. I get a hold of the police and I say, hey man, they're not even serving me writs correctly. And then the court system writes, we are returning your writ of assistance. There is no authority to issue a writ of assistance at this time in this case. Now, at the time I send the police this, I do not know, there is no legally recorded judgment against me recorded in the court docket. I don't know that. And I don't know they don't want there to be one. This case was just supposed to disappear from the court docket along with me, right? They needed my body to show up in Dixon, California. And that's all they needed. They just needed my body to show up there, you know. And then what do I think it's such a crusty ass system that coroners get bought off. Everything. I think it's just a total state of just corruption. You know, it doesn't have lawless Alaska for nothing. Alaska's state of corruption, you know. So anyway, that's it. That's where the case rests today. And when I replied to the court, that's it. I tell them, you know, I respond and I say, hey, this case has already gone through the Supreme Court. There, you know, it needs to be dismissed. This case needs to be dismissed. And they won't do it because they're sitting there like vultures on a fence, right? Because they know they committed grand larceny against me. They know it. They know it.